Welcome to BSides San Antonio. Before we begin, I wanted to give a quick shout out to our platinum sponsors, Island and St. Mary's, for helping to make this event possible. We're also grateful for the support of Alamo ISSA, Black Hills, and Depth Logic. So I'm going to turn the mic over to Eduardo Robles. He's going to talk about quick, easy AI cyber agents. So please join me in welcoming Eduardo.
Hi there. The last talk was kind of having some technical difficulties, so I'm going to donate a USB to the demo gods. Hopefully, we have no issues right now. Okay, so good afternoon. Thank you all for coming in. I know it's like literally the last talk of this track here, so awesome that you guys made it. And thank you to BSides, because it was super last minute that I got in, so made the trip up here. Anybody from the Valley or know the Valley? Wow, no one. Okay, so the Valley, I always say, oh, I'm from South Texas, and I was like, oh, San Antonio. No, but there's more deeper down in Texas. So the Valley is like all the little border counties down there. We have like 5 little counties down there, and we have a lot of fun. So my talk's gonna be on quick, easy AI cyber agents. Just basically a very quick look at my journey in building some cyber agents. So a quick little about me. I do work for one of the counties down there. It's Hidalgo County. We're a border county, so we have several bridges that connect us to Mexico. We are also one of the largest counties in terms of population in the state of Texas. But you probably never heard of us, but we're down there. I am a cybersecurity analyst at the IT department there. I've done several presentations before, BSides RGV, BSides Austin, Texas Linux Fest, and now here, yay! You can also just Google me, or you'll probably find me on my LinkedIn there. That AI generated image there, this is a fun one. So we have this thing down there in the Valley about tequaches. It's a possum. So we kind of nicknamed our team Tequache Troop. And the reason why the dapper one in the middle is drinking tea is because my manager just so happens to be from the UK. So that's just kind of a fun thing. Yeah. And they always describe me as the happy chappy guy. So that's me right here. So just a quick disclaimer. Everything I'll be discussing in this presentation is just of my own research and everything I do in my own home lab. I will probably not be discussing anything I do at my actual job, but a lot of things that I do learn in my home lab, I apply it back into my job, much to my manager's, nerves, because hey, let's try this. But yes, just all of my own research and everything. So just really quickly, the agenda. We're just going to discuss my workflow when it comes to like using AI cyber agents, how I got to it, to basically this point where I'm at now, some lessons learned, and hopefully the demo guys aren't too angry, and I can actually show you a demo of some of the things that I do, and I'll get to some conclusions. So just zoom out real quick. There we go. So just kind of give you a broad idea my workflow. So all my analysis, especially for malware analysis, I basically do it all inside of containers. Most of my tooling I built inside of containers. So I'm spinning containers up and down all day long. I don't install Nmap on my host machine. I install it inside a container, things like that. I leverage containers, like I said, every day. At BSides Austin in 2024, I gave a talk where basically I said, here's how I do quick, easy malware investigations and threat hunting. And I basically said I do it all inside of containers. But one of the funny parts is that, that's in 2024. In my conclusion, if the demo gods, please, no. There we go. In my conclusion, I had a little blurb in there where I just put like automation, AI. It was like literally that long ago where I was like, well, I don't know, maybe we can figure out how to attach AI to this stuff. But it was literally just 2 years ago. It's crazy. I don't know. Time on this back real quick. So some lessons learned. I'm on the side of I don't want AI replacing me or my job role or doing anything that basically doesn't replace my thinking. It should help improve my output, not replace me. I when we started building our own agents in our infrastructure at work, I told all the rest of the team, we should not be inventing new workflows. Let's not struggle with that. Let's just basically stick to whatever works for us now and just find ways which the AI agents basically could just improve our workflow. We found that the smaller the workflows, the better that the agents produced. Again, it's all trial and error. It's all experimentation right now. And this led me to bootable containers. Back when I gave that talk back in 2024, I was playing around with running Remnux. Has anybody heard of Remnux? Yes, awesome. So Remnux is great. It basically is kind of like a Flare VM, kind of like that, where basically you can just have a virtual machine which you snapshot, and then you run your malware in there. You do your analysis in there. Something happens, you just revert back. I was experimenting with using that because they provide a container image for that, and I was basically downloading that container image inside of another operating system called Fedora CoreOS. Fedora CoreOS is basically built to be an immutable operating system, meaning that most of the file system is only read-only. So, you get a little bit of, I guess, protection in that sense that, if malware goes crazy, it's not going to go too crazy. But again, it's also a VM, so you just snapshot it, revert, or just destroy it, rebuild. And that basically spurred on the idea, well, I already have this workflow. I already have this idea that I use containers for all these types of analysis. Let's just extend that a little bit further. And now that we have our AI agents doing some portions of the analysis, let's just dump them in there too. There was a presentation earlier today where this quote was also used, treat them like cattle, not pets. That's how I treat a lot of my malware analysis environments. I just spin them up, spin them down. I don't care that if they get infected or if they're going to be destroyed because of the infection. It's just another thing to me, another little piece of tool that I can just take out of my toolbox and put it back in when I'm done. So my project essentially just I named it Pantry Pod because the AI coding agent I use is Pi. So Pi, Pantry Pod. Pantry Pod is my project, which builds a Fedora bootc image and converts it into a VM. So I discovered the whole idea of bootable containers while learning about Fedora CoreOS and all that. And then somebody on YouTube basically said, hey, look, I built this bootable container where I stuck OpenClaw inside of it. And, that gets me all this, really awesome benefits. And I was like, that's exactly what I was thinking, so it's really cool. So if y'all want to Google that too, Lobster Call, and it's by Red Hat Enterprise Linux employee. So that's a really cool project there too. And then the actual VM that actually has my coding agent is BentoPi, putting the pie in the box kind of thing. So the coding agent has access to very limited set of tools, which is what I want. And then I could control it with very straightforward Linux tooling like systemd. Of course, that coding agent just kind of lives inside its own little environment. It does its own little thing. Only has the permissions that I gave it to. Can only access the things that I want it to. And aside from that, if you're basically connecting it to a larger model like ChatGPT or whatnot, then yeah, I can have outside access and whatnot. But I love experimenting with a lot of local stuff. Again, I home lab a lot, so I tend to run a lot of local models as well too. So extending BentoPi, since everything can be simply containerized, I simply pull whatever tooling I need into my BentoPi environment. So obviously, like I said earlier, I run the Remnux containers a lot, MCP servers, even custom containers, like the custom containers that I built for my own workstation where I do my analysis on. I could just put that inside the bootable container as well. And I have all these different very custom, environments where I could do all these types of analysis, and plus the coding agents in there as well can assist in any way, if I allow it to. Data also copied into the virtual machine can be mounted into the containers as well. So mount data into the virtual machine and then mount that into the containers. So here's the scary part. Demo! Yippee! All right, so I know the whole thing about bootc and all that, it might be, kind of overwhelming to think about booting an actual container. But it's actually a very straightforward technology. It's been around for a while. This is literally all that you need to basically start booting into a container. You just need to specify the type of image, which is in this case a Fedora bootc image. For any DevOps people in the room, I apologize for this container Docker file. It's probably terrible and worse, probably very. But again, it's part of my learning process. So in the first stage, as you see there, I am basically telling to pull down a specific type of container, and then it builds the coding agent inside of that. And then I go from there, and then I tell it, okay, pull down this image so you can start building the actual bootable container. And then from there, I just install a couple tools, basic tools. I create a user that's completely optional. You don't need to do that. And then I just basically start enabling SSH. I copy the npm packages for my coding agent. And then from there, you go on to actually build the image, which you will then boot into your container. To do that, there's this really cool tool called Podman Desktop. So sorry, I use Podman instead of Docker for a lot of these tools because it gives me the flexibility to be able to use this. But you can basically do the same exact thing with Docker. So Podman is just another OCI, respecting container technology. So they have this cool plugin where it allows you basically to click next, and you have yourself a bootable container. All you really need to specify is an image, which you can build. In this case, I'm just going to go ahead and see if it actually works and build it here now. This is the same container file that which we just were specifying earlier. You tell it where you want to build it to. Then you give it an actual name. In this case, we're just going to go with localhost bento. It's bento 1. And then any other type of arguments that you would need, and then just hit build. So right now what's happening is the actual container image is being built. It's being built to the specifications to then become a bootable image. It doesn't take too long, hopefully. There we go. It's building. Super exciting. On the drive up here yesterday, I was basically just testing this whole workflow out, and I was sitting in the passenger seat. My wife was driving, and I had the laptop on my lap, the sun blaring right on top of it, and I'm there going crazy. And apparently, it overheats if you put it right in the sun. So, yeah, so don't do that. So, yeah, that was a little, oh, great. So I just put it on the AC and for about a minute or two, and I was like, okay, let's turn it back on. So that's kind of fun. It does take a little bit of compute power, obviously, because you're building containers and whatnot. So, just FYI on that. Maybe you don't want to be doing this on a 12-year-old computer. I mean, you can, but maybe you don't want to. Wow, it's taking longer than it usually does. Like it's powering all these different screens as well. Linux has a turbo mode, so just so you guys know, look at this performance mode. Let's see if that speeds it up a little bit. Well, that goes. I guess I could show you. So this is that project Lobster Trap. Basically the same idea. They have a bootable container and they put OpenClaw inside of that. And I like kind of like what they're about there. As agents gain as agents gain more autonomy, who's making sure that they play nice? We are. Lobster Trap provides the armor, the cages, and the guardrails to keep your system safe from data protected. So it's basically the whole idea of what I'm trying to accomplish, right? Just making sure that whatever you do, where your agent does, is making sure it's nicely contained and you can keep an eye on it. Whether you defer your thinking to it, that's completely on you. It's still going. I guess I could show you their GitHub as well. This is where I got a lot of the inspiration for this project. They basically provide a lot of the blueprint, which I use for building my containers in this project. This over here is Pi. So I don't know if anyone's familiar with Pi. It's what apparently what OpenClaw took the base of and build their product on. Okay, perfect. So now it went ahead and finished. It was successful. The next step is to actually create a VM. So this is the cool part here. So if we go to this one, actually you choose the image, which in this case it's the Bento one. Here you can actually specify whether you want a raw image, a QCOW, an ISO, a VMDK, an AMI, VHD, GC, all types of virtual machines that you can think of. And you just choose whichever one you want. And if you have the proper hardware, you can even build ARM images as well. At this point, you can give it information about your username, your password, your public SSH key, and any groups that user you would want having, right? I probably won't do this part because the last part was pretty slow, so this takes even longer. But I can show you the build log from, well, that's super tiny. It does like this really cool build log, just showing you exactly all the different layers that it does in its image. And it really does just spit out a QCOW image in the end. As you can see here, that's the QCOW image it spits out. And from there, you just plug it into whatever virtualization platform you want. In this case, I have an example here. Let's power this one on. So this is just literally me booting up that container we just built. And it's going to boot up just like any normal operating system with the full Linux kernel inside of it. It's going to have its own little environment with specific tooling. Once it's booted up and it gets its own IP, you can then, all you simply have to do, so this is an example of, oh, let me do this clear. That's just an example of me actually running one of my containers for security tools that I have. So now I'm inside a simple container on my host machine. And then I can just SSH into that bootable container. So that's came from my YubiKey. And now I'm inside that bootable container. So inside a container, in a virtual machine, so many levels there. But essentially, just to prove that the Pi coding agent is in there. Yay, look at that. We have a Pi coding agent. And it has a skill, an EML security and analyzer. It's just a simple skill that I wrote just to check the headers for when you're checking an email and whatnot. And we can go to resume here. Let's go check out what it did. So here, just to kind of give you guys an example, I told it, hey, use the skill. Okay, here I told it There's an encrypted zip file with the password infected. Act as a cybersecurity researcher and analyze the email for suspicious contents. I gave it the password for this infected file. I went to any.run. Anybody familiar with any.run? And I just grabbed a EML from there. So I tried to get the most juiciest one I could find. So there it goes. It's doing its thing. It wants me to act as a cybersecurity researcher. It basically tries to see, okay, yeah, there is a file there. It actually messed up a couple times trying to unzip it because it didn't realize what tools it had available to it. You could probably save time by telling it beforehand what tools it has available to it. But since it has access to Bash, it essentially just started testing everything it could find. It found it. It starts basically going through the process of its skill. Starts seeing what other tools it has. It actually found that it only has read, bash, edit, and write skills. And then it goes through its own workflow, just as it's defined in my skill. And then what else do we have here? In this case, it was just some EML about employee pay raise. Kind of struggles through things a bit here and there. Again, this is just a simple skill. It's nothing like at work, we have things that are a little bit more, defined. But this is just to kind of show you, how it kind of thinks, right? It basically starts pulling out some of the details in there. Starts running grep on several things. It determines that, yes, there's actually a QR code. No direct URLs to any phishing sites, but there's a QR code in there. Tries checking for headers. Goes through all that. Keeps going. And then it finally just spits out with its answer. And it says, as a cybersecurity researcher, I have analyzed the email file extracted from the provided zip archive. Here's my report. And that's just a simple report that, very simple structure that I had to do. It goes through making sure that it shows me what metadata I found, any suspicious findings. In this case, it just mentioned a temporal anomaly. And it also goes on to state content and social engineering analysis. In the end, this was just a phishing test to this company, but someone reported it, so it was kind of funny. It goes on just to basically say that, yeah, it's possibly phishing, sender spoofing, and its verdict, highly suspicious. The email is in this textbook example of phishing. The nonsensical deadline combined with high pressure social engineering and the use of QR code to hide the destination URL strongly indicates the malicious intent to harvest credentials or distribute malware via a fake employee portal. I also have another skill that summarizes it for the upper management. So it takes this kind of speak and then summarize it into a little bit more human, relatable. Of course, then it gives recommendations. Do not scan the QR code, do not click on the links, report the email and delete the email. So that's just an example of a quick session that I did. This was after my computer crashed in the heat. I did this, I ran this agent. So, it's just one of those things, like all this is happening inside of a container, inside a virtual machine, which I then access from a container. So it's a lot of little different layers happening there. The virtual machine is also SSH access only via YubiKey, so it's MFA'd. So it's pretty cool that I was able to get to this point with very straightforward tooling and very little things that I actually had to do by hand. And then on top of that, you have the actual agent do a little bit of the analysis on its own. Of course, I would probably have more stricter guidelines as to what it could do, how it would do it. Because again, I don't want to do it in my job. That's not what I want it to do. I just want it to find me a specific thing that I can then report back to my management. And in that case, like I said, this is just any other coding agent at this point. Another thing that I want to do the next time around or next couple months is actually just build a whole VM that has a local model already in there. Some of the smaller models are getting pretty good. I've been playing around with some of the Gemma models, some of the Granite models from IBM, and they're pretty good, especially when it comes to efficient analysis. So I want to basically build the LLM inside of the container as well, have a proxy in there as well. So it's all the communication is happening there, and I can just be completely disconnected and it just be at some computer where this thing is just running on there and it's just doing its thing. So hopefully that'll be kind of cool. So, okay, everything went out pretty good with the demo. So in conclusion, we have the knowledge and technology to securely run our AI agents. Early on, it was a little scary just kind of watching everybody just put these things fully on their computers. I mean, I could totally get it because you want to play around with them. That's cool. But when I started coming across them, and especially when the team wanted to experiment with them, I just reverted back to my, the things that I had already learned. I'm like, well, let's put this inside a container. Let's put this inside of that. Let's put this separately different from the network. Let's start figuring out how we're going to segment it all and do all these things. Because again, that's just a workflow that I had already learned. And to me, it was just natural just to put these things inside of containers. And like I say there, as a security practitioners, we should be experimenting with these AI agents. They could provide a lot of helpful feedback. Again, I see it as a way to augment our work, to basically output better results. As always, I, for one, work for a government agency. We're completely understaffed. So I'm seeing it in the sense where, like, how can this then help me produce more with less? So, and one last little tidbit there is like, just remember that threat actors love testing in your production environment, So you should be probably testing as well, safely though, obviously. And one of the benefits of doing this all inside of containers and all that is that you can kind of like have that little bit of peace of mind. Just obviously, you still have to be very cautious of what you do. As always, you got to understand this technology first before you start deploying these agents in this manner. But like I kind of explained, this was a progression for me. I started with first doing the malware analysis in small containers, and then moving to building multiple containers, and then building all my custom tooling inside of containers, and then learning how to boot into the containers, and then putting all that knowledge, all those other different types of containers inside of that, and then finally getting to the point where we can then add AI into it. So it's definitely a progression type of thing. I've definitely would recommend a lot of people moving towards this, especially like the tooling part. Makes it very simple of having a container where you have all your tools in there, and then essentially just relying on that instead of like this whole dependency problem with different types of tooling everywhere. You can just keep it nice and tidy inside of containers. And yeah, that's my talk. Any questions? Oh, yes.
Are there any open source threat vector feeds for AI agents yet?
Open source threat? I have not looked into that. It's a great question. I will have to look into that.
What was the name of the application that you used to actually create these Google?
Yes, that is Podman Desktop. Podman. Yeah. So Podman Desktop. It's kind of hard to see, but the technology is called Podman, Podman. And they have this product called Podman Desktop, which you can then it has a bunch of different features. You can run all your different containers from here as well. But it does have that one extension where you can create the bootable containers from there. And like I mentioned, it's not too difficult. Just a couple of lines, you can create yourself a bootable container from there. And where you deploy it, basically your choice. If you have infrastructure where you deploy that VM, you can. I run it here locally on my machine. I do so at work as well. But yeah.
Any other questions? Okay.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Eduardo. Just one more thing before y'all go. They still may have some mentors and mentees available down in Alcac. And also, if you go down there, they have T-shirts from last year's B-Sides available. So thank you all for coming out.